Welcome to Mayhem to Mastery, leading transformation from the middle, with your hosts, James Thompson and Ronii Bartles. In each episode, we will interview change agents, operators, and advisors who have learned to drive results without relying on formal authority. From process optimization to strategic communication, and yes, even competitive compliance. We break down what it takes to lead well when you're in the middle of it all. Mayhem to Mastery, Leading Transformation from the Middle, is a podcast for leaders navigating the messy, high-stakes space between top-down strategy and frontline execution. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and on our website, concentricglobal.co. Now here's the hosts of Mayhem to Mastery, Leading Transformation from the Middle, James Thompson and Ronii Bartles.
Hello, and welcome to Mayhem and Mastery, Leading Transformation from the Middle. I'm your host, Ronii Bartles, and with me is my co-host, James Thompson. And today we have Jonathan Parker from NxTrek with us. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Jonathan.
Doing
so
great. I'm
gonna we try and do an introduction on how we know, and I'm gonna do yours since I was the one that reached out. So interestingly enough, I find our introduction fun because I was just scrolling through my morning Charleston Today newsletter, and there's an ad for NxTrek, and I'm like, they do something similar to us, and they're in the same state. So I told James, I was like, we should really reach out to them. And so we did. And sure enough, we got on a call, and a few months later we were doing an event together, and look at us now.
Look at us now.
Yeah, crazy how a simple publication will work, right? So apparently you still need to write articles and have them emailed to your inbox.
Yep, exactly. That is a good testament to email marketing for sure, when everybody's like, email marketing's dead, and it is definitely not.
Definitely not. Look at us right now.
Not.
It's great. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about you and what you're working on and what's going on right now.
Yeah, so Jonathan Parker. I'm one of the founders and managing partners of NxTrek, where we work with mid-size and family-owned businesses to help them achieve operational, financial, and cultural success, not just for this generation, but for generations to come. So we work all over the country with some just really amazing clients. I also am a speaker, so I speak coast to coast, keynotes, conferences, workshops, as a trainer, specifically in the world of communication and conversation and how that ultimately affects performance and leadership and culture. I wrote a book, gave a TED Talk, but most importantly, I'm married to my best friend, Jessica, and I got 3 awesome boys who are wide open all the time. So thankfully they're in school, so that's why I can be at home and have this conversation. So yeah, that's a little bit about this.
Good. I bet I have, my best friend has 2 boys, and they are wide open as well. So I get it.
Yeah, they're all boy. That's for sure.
Yeah. So with our podcast, we kind of like to talk about leading from the middle and kind of chaos. And most of our guests have been within organizations. You're kind of one of our first that's been a consultant sort of outside it and seen a lot of organizations like us, because we do a very similar thing. So, let's talk a little bit about, you guys probably go into a lot of chaos and kind of what that looks like and the transformation of that. Give us some insight into how, you kind of work through some of that chaos with management teams.
Yeah, it's interesting. Most people are not self-aware enough to know that they're in chaos or in conflict or in a storm. They just feel like something's not right, or they're angry, or they're sad, or they're hurt. That most people won't say like, "Oh, I'm in the middle of a mess," or "I'm in the middle of chaos." Most people aren't self-aware enough. Most teams aren't. Also, they have a tendency to deflect and blame. Like, well, the problem is because of the CEO, or the problem is because of my manager. Right. So what they do is, rather than seeing a problem for multiple angles, they see it as someone's individual problem. Right. And I think there is some level of ownership that needs to happen. Right. I need to know what I'm playing, what my part is, how am I contributing to the mess, not necessarily the solution. But it would be really inappropriate for me the whole problem is James. If James just wasn't on the team, everything would be better. Well, okay, let's chase that rabbit. If James goes away, then you got to replace James. Have we actually dealt with the crisis? So half the battle is getting them to calm down enough and say, okay, it's no one person's fault. But broadly speaking, maybe at times there's a toxic individual or there's something unethical or illegal going on, right? So those are the exceptions, not the rule. But most of the time, where you start is, are you willing to admit you have a problem, right? You want to admit like you have a problem. There's a famous writer and scholar called Dr. G.K. Chesterton, who when asked, what is the problem with the world? His response was me. Like, are you willing to take ownership that the reason your company, the reason your team's in the mess is in part because of you? And if I can get a whole team to like embrace the humanity side, like, okay, yeah, I'm a part of it. You're a part of it. They're a part of it. Okay, good. Now that we agree that we're all part of the problem, are we all now willing to become part of the solution? Right. But if I can't get someone or a team member to be like, no, I'm not the problem. Like, well, then I don't know how you're going to be part of the solution. Right. So part of the work is the whole team has to be on board that there is a problem. And that sounds really funny to say. Right. It sounds really funny to say, but I was watching the Texans game last night and they just destroyed the Steelers on both sides of the ball. But they started 0-3. Right. They started 0-3, some injuries. They had some issues. But it was interesting hearing how the coach like went about like helping them. They're like, hey, we're all 0-3. Like the quarterback's not 0-3. The coaching staff's not 0-3. Right. We're all 0-3. So what are we all going to do to turn that around? And I think that's just a great model. Like we're all in this. So then how do we approach it? And how do we all become part of the solution? If a team can't do that transparently, I'll just say, hey, I'm not the person for you. I mean, there's someone that will come in and maybe try to triage or, put a Band-Aid on it. And again, hey, maybe that's what they need to get to real solutions. But like one of our guiding principles at NxTrek is prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. So if I diagnose that the whole team is sick or the whole team is in chaos or the whole team's in conflict and the whole team's not willing to take the prescription, then I don't know if it's really the best use of their time, their finances, their effort and mine to kind of step into that chaos with them.
Yeah.
Can I unpack that real quick? Just a quick question that I have seen that you've probably seen more of and have a better answer than what I have. Oftentimes the client that is bringing us in is the founder or the CEO. It's the chief, and they're looking more so for answers about supporting their cause or, reiterating, well, if we just had an outside person say exactly what I've been saying, then everyone would fall in line. How do you approach that?
Yeah, multiple different angles, depending on where the CEOs come from. I mean, one of our clients, the CEO, knew there was chaos and conflict and mayhem happening in one of their divisions. They made some leadership changes. And then I started doing I did an executive or a leader intensive, right? They weren't an executive yet, but I did a leader intensive. And part of that leader intensive was starting with the CEO and this new leader who was probably 2 or 3 rungs down the ladder. But the CEO is like, I want to know what's going on in the mayhem of this, right? What's going on in this area? And the new leader started saying some things. And the CEO is like, why hasn't anyone told me? Why hasn't anyone told me? I can solve that problem right now. But why hasn't anyone told me? Why hasn't anyone told me? So sometimes I feel like CEOs, C-suites, founders, they're not arrogant all the time. Sometimes they're ignorant. Sometimes they're like, I didn't know. No one told me. I don't know why no one told me. It's my business. I am technically in charge. I wish someone would at least bring that up in a meeting. So sometimes I'll start with the CEO like, hey, do you know anything's going on? Or do you know what's happening down that way? If they're like, oh yeah, I'm very aware. I'm like, all right, cool. Now you are part of the problem, right? But if you don't know, I'm not sure you're part of the problem yet. However, the other piece, James, to your point is, oh, hey, we just need, I don't know if this is an appropriate phrase, but like a hired gun. Can you just come in and tell them what I want them to hear and fix them and get them moving? It's like, no, there are people for that. You can do that. But if you're aware of what's going on and you are ultimately in charge, then you have to claim some ownership of it as well. So that's why we never start in the middle, right? We do, if there is chaos in the middle or even like one below the executive suite, we can't start there. That's frustrating to the team. That's frustrating to ownership. That's frustrating to the executive team. If the main leaders aren't willing to set the example to go first, right? Even if they don't have the problem, but if they're not willing to go first in the conversation, or at least in the dialogue or in some of the training, then it's just frustrating to the middle team. And a lot of companies have had that happen, right? I've walked into a company like, oh, so you're the consultant this year. I'm like, this year? Right? What do you mean? Like, we had one of you last year, right? And we were coming to fix this and it didn't work because the problem's up top. I'm like, oh, okay. Right. So that's why if the executives aren't willing to go first, it's very challenging for me and NxTrek to be like, oh, we'll try to fix what's going on in the middle. So we don't like, I don't know what, like the mouthpiece, the puppet, the hired gun. Yeah, we're not gonna play that game. And if you don't know, let us help you find out. But if you do know, then you got to own it. You're part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I've always been one. I tell people business isn't hard. We make it hard because people make it hard. Business, right. I mean, every business is the same. Every business has a P&L, a balance sheet, and a cash flow. It's like, no matter how big you are, it's the people in it that kind of make it difficult. And so, James and I kind of go into organizations. Normally we're hired in that realm of systems, like come fix systems. And really, yes, there might be a systems problem, but if you don't have if you have a people problem too, the systems aren't going to work anyway because nobody's going to implement them. So, it's definitely something that people have to be willing to change, take responsibility. And you need a leader that's going to lead that.
Right. And, with the growing AI and growing tech, the one thing AI may never be able to solve and probably won't is the human complexity. Like we're human, right? So, specifically in my role at NxTrek and my role with teams and companies and conferences, like I deal with human intelligence, right? HI, right? That original intelligence, right? I work with the human intelligence. The OG, right? AI is never going to be able to fix how I communicate or how I process the world or how I see a situation. Now, it might give me a system or a cheat sheet or another thing to implement, but it's not going to help me know what to cut out all the time. And even if it does, I still have to take the ownership to actually cut it out, right? So I think love is a broad term. I'm grateful for AI. I think it's utilized like a helpful tool. However, it doesn't solve the human complexity problem. And that's why we still got to do the human work.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely am a proponent of that. We, go in and normally everybody's like, we have a systems problem or a marketing problem. That's the other one everybody likes to say. I have a marketing problem. Maybe, but we need to look at, holistically, how does the organization run? So do you have any like specific examples of like real chaos that you guys went in and kind of, without naming names, like really made a good transformation that you can come out the other end and be like, that was cool?
Yeah, I think there's two. I'll give two stories. One that the transformation stuck and one when the transformation didn't stick, right? Because, I think it's helpful to know that all coaches and consultants are not perfect. So let's start with the one that didn't stick. We were working, all right, broad, protect the innocent and the guilty, right? We're working within this company, national distribution in like major retailers. And they dealt in consumables, which was cool. But the CEO brought us in and he had us convinced that everything was dialed in. He was communicating well. He was functioning well. And then we did some focus groups. So that's one of the things we like to do with larger companies. Like, let's have some focus groups, do them all in one day. Let's get some data, both metric and anecdotal. And then we went back to the executive team. We're like, hey, this is what we heard. Is this true? And they're like, oh my goodness, we didn't know it was that bad. It's pretty bad. So started working with them and worked with them for a whole year. By the end of that first year, man, we had new management in place. We had a healthy team. We cut out some additional costs they didn't need. We removed some positions that weren't helpful. The executive team was moving, and we decided to hire, in essence, a chief of staff because the team was moving and sales were growing and things were going well. Well, at that point, right, some coaches and consultants, like I don't want a client ever to be dependent on me, right? My goal is to, at some point, my job should be done with them, right? And that they should be moving. Well, what happened was when they moved on this new hire and the team was functioning, well, when the team's healthy and the executive team's healthy, you start noticing what's unhealthy, right? When the whole body's sick, it's hard to pinpoint where's this coming from, right?
True.
But when you start healing and you start getting better and you start being healthy, you can be like, oh, you know what? It's my ear. My ear hurts, right? Everything else is good. Man, must be something wrong with my ear. Well, that's what happened. Whole body got healthy, and all of a sudden we're like, man, there's some major problems with the CEO. Major problems. And when we started to hold them accountable to it and like hold up the mirror, like, hey, listen, we got everything dialed in. You're just the one not doing it anymore. You're the one not paying attention. Like, hey, you've invested tens of thousands of dollars and you're not going to do this work. He started ghosting us, and I was following up because they became friends. You know when that happens?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I got a text. He fired the chief of staff, hired his director of HR, said you're gone, fired him that day, fired their 2 other managers, brought up people that were just yes men. And now I think they're still going today. But they had to downsize pretty rapidly, and they are heavily in debt. And I remember like looking back on that going, okay, what could I have done more? What could I have noticed? How could I have gotten better? And yeah, I learned some things from that. But on the other side of it, I can't control someone else's behavior or perspective, right? We did everything we thought we needed to do. And then when it came to the owner, founder, he didn't want to do it himself. Right. So, physician, heal thyself, he didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a challenge because I had 2 of my friends lose their job within 5 minutes. A team that I spent a lot of time with, they lost their leaders. And now every once in a while I'll bump into them and they're pretty demoralized. They're back right where they were, and now it's worse, right? Because now the owner and exec team can sniff out like, oh no, you're here to help and heal. We don't want that. Right. And that's that piece. So that's hard. But then a good one, working with a team, they were looking for a transition and they needed transition leadership. And when I started working with the team, they were pretty sure, like, I don't think this person could take over. I don't know if they have the right wiring. I don't think they have the right personality, maybe talents. I don't think it will work. But then they did development and they did advancement and they got better and they got to know each other more. And they actually put into practice what they were learning, even to the point where they're like, hey, we think we have enough of this like right now to work on. So we're going to take a break. We're going to work on this, or we're going to really implement what you're doing. And then, I get an email and a Q3, hey, transition happened. That is the new leader. They're moving forward. We're ready to pick up where we are. I'm doing one-on-one coaching with him, one-on-one coaching with another executive, and they're going to be the ones that lead it out with the team. So is that messy? It could have been, but because we took the appropriate steps, to be able to see it get done. So it really comes down to, are people willing, right, to call and own what their part is in any piece and then respond and execute in a really powerful way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just always interesting. Like the people piece of that made such a difference in 2 different organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was one person, right? Both were one person, right? That shows you the power any one person can have.
Yeah.
Right? The power any one person can have is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So I have a question about that first scenario. So if you find yourself in the middle of the organization, which is the spirit of this podcast, you're not the decision maker at the very top. You find yourself, I don't know if you want to say trapped or in the, the middle of the ladder. You care about your job. You care about where you're going. You want to be better. You want to contribute to making the company better. But you see that there's really a limitation, or the trajectory of even just the culture or ethics aren't aligned with, what you feel is right. What's your advice, I guess, down to an individual professional level? How do you, suck it up, and you just bought that 3rd car and, hold on tight, you're chained to this corporation, because, you and I and Ronnie, we get to go in and visit and then get out. I mean, it's easier for us to exit, but, do you encourage that person to stay in the trenches, to look for another job? Like, what's your advice there for the folks in the middle?
Yeah. So for the folks in the middle, and I've used this for years, and it catches everyone off guard because it's a pithy phrase that we just say and kind of throw it away. But then when someone actually is like, no, tell me what you would do. And it's the phrase, well, think like an owner. If you were the owner of the company, would you stay with this company? Would you stay working? Would you keep that person, your boss, your CEO? If you were thinking like an owner, would you keep them on? No. Okay. Would you want to keep working this culture? No. Is the money so good that you can deal? No. Okay. So think like an owner. What would you do? I would leave. Okay. Think like an owner. What would you do? I'd want to stay and try to fix it. Okay. What would that look like? So I put it back on them. I'm like, all right, do what everyone tells you to do. Treat this job like it's your own. Treat this product like you created it, right? Think like an owner. All right, think like an owner. You're in the middle. There's a mess and mayhem going on. If you were the owner, what would you do? I'd probably fire my whole team and leave. Okay. I didn't tell you that. You just thought like an owner. And sometimes when they can separate themselves from a practitioner, from the actual role, to saying, well, if I thought like an owner, no, I think I would stay and fix it. I think if our team did this, or okay, good, then do that. And one of the best books on this whole thing is called The Dip by Seth Godin. I don't know. Have you guys read The Dip? When to Quit, When to Stick?
I haven't read it, but I've heard of it, and I love him.
It is like a little square book, maybe 100 pages, but it's half sheets, if not quarter sheets. And I read The Dip 3 times, and it's like when to quit, when to stick. And he just walks you through a pathway. And then 2 of the times I was like, no, I'm supposed to stick this out. I'm supposed to stick this out. Like that's right. It gave me good filters. But the third time I was like, yeah, now's the time to quit. And it's the idea that, to quote him, he's like, the analogy winners never quit is wrong. Winners quit at the right things, right? They quit at the right things.
At the right time.
At the right time. And that's what the book, The Dip, was super helpful for. So I would say anyone in the middle right now, like, should I stick it out or should I quit? I would read The Dip. I mean, you can think like an owner, but go spend $12.99, spend 2 hours reading those books. And then if you're supposed to stick, figure out how you're supposed to own your part and get it done. And you're supposed to quit, end well. Like, don't be a jerk, end well, and well for your team, and well for your customers, and well for for even the company. Because that's going to go with you. But if it's time to go, it's time to go.
Yeah.
And I will say, and Ronnie and I could probably agree on this, just knowing, both of our backgrounds. Oftentimes, if you're going to dip, if you're going to get out, and let's say you have an interest in being, a consultant or coach or, contract implementer. Oftentimes what I've seen is your first best client is your previous employer. So if you can think of it that way, if I'm going to exit, I want to exit in a way where the relationship that I keep and the insight that I know about the organization is so rich, it's so good that they'll want to continue to engage me, even though I've, quote unquote, left them. So kind of think of it that way, whether they actually hire you and bring you in for consulting or not, would they? I think that's important.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I got to where I am. I was working for a company and recession happened, and they weren't letting me go for any reason and I actually offered. I'm like, I kind of want to do this on my own. And they're like, we'll be your first client. And they're still my client 18 years later.
That's awesome.
It definitely is. That's a good point of like, who you work for is a good first client. If it's an organization that you believe in and don't have hard feelings with,
Correct.
There are some situations where that, just wouldn't work. But it's a good first step in consulting world. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have a client right now that's in the middle of chaos, and it's one of those leadership is really hard to change. And there's one of those companies that you go, they're successful despite themselves. Right. Like,
right.
And I kind of look at it, and I'm sure, Jonathan, you may have had a little bit of this sometimes when you walk into companies where you're like, I'm walking in, I know they have something. I know they're like on the verge of something. Otherwise they wouldn't have gotten to this point of success. And so those are the situations where, I kind of go, all right, it's a little bit of chaos here. It's a lot of chaos, actually, in this particular situation, a lot of chaos. And I'm like, all right, do I stick it out and just, really try and make a change because I think they've got something here? Or am I dipping because this is just too much?
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting.
Yeah. One of the phrases for that is you can be accidentally successful.
Yep.
Right. I've worked with teams like this. Like, how did you get here? I don't know. Okay. Well, you can only pass on what you possess. So if you don't know what made you successful, it's going to be really hard for us to pass that on to the next generation. Right. Yep. Well, I just went with my gut. That's great. That dies with you. Like, so I can't, at least not yet, get an AI to take your intuition and your feelings and your long antennas and, put them in somebody else. So one of the things, sometimes when I go into chaos or success, I'm like, tell me intentionally how you got here. I love companies who tell me, hey, you got some mess. There's a little mayhem. There's a little chaos. There's a little conflict. How did we get here? I love a company who's like, let me tell you what happened. I'm like, great. You at least intentionally know how this happened. You know why the party went sideways, right? You understand who was at fault. Like, if you're being intentional and then things break, man, I can help fix that. But if like, hey, what happened? I don't know. What do you have no clue? Yeah. Maybe it's okay. If you're so accidental, the muscle work to get you intentional is so hard, right? So you're taking a muscle that you haven't used called intentionality, and then you're going to have to like build that muscle up. The accidental muscle is way more, because then you don't have to take ownership or responsibility, right? So I love that idea of like, you go in, you're like, there's something here, but I bet you haven't been intentional. What would happen if we train the intentionality muscle and let the accidental muscle atrophy? We might see greater success, because sometimes it's true that the solution is already in the room.
Yeah.
Like, I do believe that. And sometimes it's an outside third party. Sometimes it's an outside voice just coming in to pull out the solution in the room, not necessarily to insert what they think they need. I think that's a lost art for consultants, coaches. They feel like they're always the ones that have to add value. They're always the ones that have to come up with the solution. Sometimes our role is, hey, show up, pull the solution, draw the solution out of the team, because a lot of time it's in the space.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and to that point, consultants a lot of times go in and they're expected to have a deliverable and have it quick. So they're trying to get that, when I'm in your book of, I like to go in and they already know the solution. You just have to get it out of them. But yeah, my one client that's in chaos right now they're successful despite themselves.
Yeah.
Accidental.
Accidental.
It's very accidental. Like, they've been in the industry for a long time, so there is knowledge there for sure, but 100% just an accident.
Yeah. And then if they're going to try to transfer that leadership over, that's going to be hard, because they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. If they're trying to sell, that no PE firm or VC or another company is going to try to buy it because they don't know what happened. Anyone who's accidental, I'm like, y'all, it's fun for a little bit, and I'm glad you were successful for a little bit, and maybe 20 years. It's just selfish, though. Let's get intentional.
Yeah. Well, and in this case, I think this is going to be a good example of they're successful despite themselves. They have a lot of chaos. CEO owner is not willing to change. So it's a very tough situation for anybody to go in. They're having, high turnover in HR and employees because it's a toxic environment and it's a lot of chaos. And they've had consultants come in and he's not willing to change. And we're having the problem of, in meetings, he says he is, but then turns around and does all the same things he's always ever done.
Yep. It happens.
Yep. Unfortunately, because this little business could be phenomenal. So anyway, I know we're coming up on time. James, do you want to do a quick hot take on what you're taking away? What was the key thing from this conversation that you are taking with you?
Yeah, one thing is, there is no they, there's only we. That's the way I kind of interpret what Jonathan said about it. You've got to start with the realization that you are a part of the problem to be a part of the solution. I think that's really good. Quick question: pickles, you love them or hate them?
Oh, I love pickles. Well, love is a
Okay.
strong word. I appreciate the pickle, and I think it should
Okay.
be on more things than not.
Okay.
I like them fried, dilled, hot.
Okay. Okay.
They're great.
I just wondering where you stand on that, and then, but these are things I'm thinking about, while you're talking. But the other question is, what do you have, or what have you seen? Let's say in the new year, or over the holidays, or in the last year, that's the best hack for under $100 to help leaders, to help organizations. Anything come to mind?
So, yes, for under $100, I think it's exactly $99. I don't get royalties for it. But iScribe. So iScribe is an app that you can just upload any recording to, and it transcribes for you. Now, I get it. You can use Gemini and Copilot, but when you're in a meeting or just a conversation, or you're talking, in a group, which I do a lot, typically you only have your phone. Right. So you have a recorder app. I think we need to use the recorder app way more. I think we really need to, because our brains, because there was that old adage, right? A dull pencil is better than a sharp brain, right? Which gave this idea of like, take notes. I don't think we take a lot of notes anymore. I think we rely on our brain or on our phone. I think if you have your phone and then you just upload it to iScribe and it just transcribes it for the best it can. And then you have notes, and then you have meetings. But I would also say what I like about it is, because we become such a visual and we don't write as much, we talk more. If you have a brilliant idea, or you're brainstorming in your car, like turn the radio down, open your recorder, and just start talking to your recorder. Hey, this is how I would solve this problem. Oh, here's a cool idea I have. Or, oh, here's some content that I want to, unpack. Like, record it, upload it to iScribe, and then you have the content, right? You may do something with it, you may not. But I think a way to capture your vocal content in a way that's really just clean and precise, and iScribe does that. I think that's a great one. I like it.
Nice. Good tip.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, because we're at time, I'm going to wrap up. Jonathan, thank you so much for being with us. This has been a great
thanks
conversation.
For having me.
Yeah. I love the softer side of business, of talking about these kinds of things where we've got humans in it. Like, we still have humans. We still have to work with them. They still make decisions.
Sure. Right.
So whether they're good decisions or bad decisions, they still make decisions. But I'm so grateful that you came and joined us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonathan.
So don't leave. Give us a minute.
Hey, and where could we find more about you, or where can our listeners look you up or connect with you, or?
Yeah, so you can find NxTrek is NxTrek.com, NxTrek.com. It's our company's website. You can find me at thejonathanrparker.com if you're on my personal website. I do some stuff on Instagram and LinkedIn, not a ton, but Jonathan R. Parker on both of those. And you can just reach out on those platforms or via the website.
Awesome.
Thank you so
much.
Thanks again, Jonathan.
Thank you all. It's been great being with you.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
You've been tuning into Mayhem to Mastery, leading transformation from the middle, with your hosts, James Thompson and Ronii Bartles. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and on our website, concentricglobal.co. Thank you for joining us.